Hey, this is Mark Daniels. What's going on, guys? I was actually not really thinking of doing another video today, but I came across this article and I thought it was pretty important to talk about this a little bit. I think this right here can give you guys a pretty good idea of the way that our government is operating. And it also demonstrates the powers that these individual states have constitutionally. Now, what this article here is talking about is GMO labeling law, dubbed Dark Act, is being considered by the Senate. Now, I don't know if any of you guys are really familiar with that GMO law that they passed last year. But basically, it covers a couple of important issues, and actually, the law itself is a pretty good demonstration of how ridiculously our government is operating. Okay? What this GMO law says that they passed, in essence, is that companies that want to label their food as non-GMO have to go through all of this strict and rigorous testing and spend all this money and go through all these tests in order to have the government approve them to label their food as non-GMO. Now, that doesn't really seem like such a big deal until you hear the other half of the law, which pertains to the companies that do make food with GMO. Now, what this law says about the companies who make food with GMO is that, number one, they do not have to label their food as having GMOs. This is not required. Number two, the means of which a company's product made with GMO is deemed to be safe for the American people is by the company telling the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, that their GMO food is safe for the American people. No, I didn't misquote. You did not misunderstand. That is, in fact, how the law is written. The safety of the food, of the GMO food that's made for public consumption, is deemed safe simply by the company going to the FDA and saying, our food is safe. And they're like, okay, cool. That's literally all it is. That, and then you turn around, as I stated previously, and you've got your GMO food, and they've got to go through all of this stuff to prove that their stuff is GMO free, and it passes all these tests, and they pay all this money and go through this whole ordeal. Okay, now on top of that, okay, because that's not even all of it. The FDA has declared themselves gods of food labeling. That's right. Companies don't have the final say in how their food is labeled. The Food and Drug Administration now reserves the right to alter food labels the way they see fit anytime they want to, with impunity. That's the kind of power that the government has over your food. If any of you are hearing this and you question this, you should go and look up some videos on YouTube on the GMO law, and I will assure you this is no joke. This is indeed the lunacy and idiocy of our government. And I've talked about this time and time again, how just backwards they're reconstructing America. All right, they're teaching you what's good is bad, what's bad is good, what's GMO is not, and what's not GMO is. They're twisting everything around, and it's like 90% of America is like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that apple really is an orange because you say it is. Now, Vermont, who should be praised, has stepped up. All right? They understand that states are their own sovereign entities. Okay? The states are not ruled by the federal government. The federal government is a representative of the states. The federal government can send out laws to states, but these are something that should be more taken like a guideline than something you're actually required to follow or you're going to go to prison. Now what I mean is basically exactly like this. Vermont stepped up and said, we think this is ridiculous. Just like I would imagine most Americans think this is ridiculous. So they stepped up and they made their own law. And they said, federal government, we're not having that crap in our state. You want to put GMOs in your food? You want to feed it to the American public? You're going to put it on the damn label. Right? Everybody in America should be rallying behind this state for doing this. And every other state in America needs to stand up and do the exact same thing. If our elected officials are not going to take any effort to protect our American citizens, then what the hell are they in office for? Right? But what they're proposing here is the craziest thing that I have ever heard. And you need to understand the implications and the seriousness of this. Now basically, what the federal government is trying to do, which is completely laughable, is not only are they trying to control how the food products are labeled, but they're trying to take it one step further. They're trying to say, they want to pass a new law to say that states don't have the power to supersede their law. Right? They're trying to pass a law in the federal government saying the states cannot pass laws that undo their laws. And I'm sitting here and I ask them, and I'm asking you, do any of these people in Washington, have they read the Constitution? States are sovereign governments. Each state is its own sovereign government. Basically, the best way to explain it is, you know how everybody looks at the United States government over there in Washington, D.C., the president and the secretary of state and the vice president and all of that. The way that is for America, basically, is the way each state is for its state. Those guys are just as important to represent America as Governor Abbott is to representing Texas. All right, and it might be easier to understand, because you basically what we have, more or less. It's not quite like this, but more or less what we have are 50 separate individual sovereign nations that join together to form one nation. Right? So basically, each state's government, as it pertains to that state, is the way people view Washington, D.C. and America. Except the thing is, this government in Washington, D.C. is actually supposed to be a representative of the states. It is supposed to be a servant of the states. Okay? But the reality is, what they are trying to do is become the master of the states. They are trying to pass a law and tell states they don't have the power to change the law. And you can't imagine my surprise that something like this came up as soon as Antonin Scalia passed away, because he was by far the most constitutional judge on the panel. Now, this has big implications for America. And I'm telling you right here and right now, this right here, this one simple law, if this law gets passed, okay, this will be the law that takes down America and turns it from a democracy that it is to a monarchy. All right, because this sets a precedent, and a precedent is everything. Every time there's a precedent set on some kind of big issue, every time there's another case that pertains to that precedent, they go back to the precedent and enforce that ruling on everybody else. Right? So as soon as they set the precedent, taking away a state's right to control how they wish or wish not to label their food, it sets a precedent. And once this precedent is set, once state governments decide to step up and they want to fight against gun control, even though it says on the Second Amendment that it shall not be infringed upon, your right to bear arms. They won't be able to, because there was a precedent set by the GMO law that revoked states' rights. If they start banning free speech, which we all think is just a matter of time before they do, the states won't be able to stand up for you because the government has just set a precedent. So every time a state goes to the Supreme Court to fight with the federal government, there won't be a case, because they'll know that every time that they take the case to the Supreme Court, they'll say, well, in this case of Vermont versus U.S., when we made this new law, this new dark law, we've already set a precedent. And because this precedent was already made and ruled and enforced, then any other law that is the same, or any other instance of states' rights, has already had a precedent set upon it, and so we will follow this. Okay? There's a big push in this nation right now that I've been telling y'all is important. That is Convention of the States. Alright? And the Convention of the States is some pretty common sense stuff. Make the federal government balance the budget. Allow 2/3 of the states to overturn the Supreme Court, which has no checks and balances. It is a monarchy. It is a dictatorship. It answers to no one. Have 2/3 the state be able to overturn a law they passed in Washington because it's ridiculous. It's another checks and balance. All right, these are all some pretty common sense things that have been proposed in the Texas plan. I also want to point out to you guys that Convention of the States does in fact have a YouTube channel. It has like 2,900 followers. That's it. Our federal government is not going to fix itself. If it was, it would have done so quite some time ago. We keep hoping that there's going to be a new president who's going to do something to fix this. We only have one real problem in America. It's our national debt. Okay? And time again, we have presidents who say they're going to reduce the debt and they increase it. And Obama is no exception. He pushed lowering the debt more than anybody I've heard in a long time. And he just announced he wants to spend $3 trillion more. Everybody in America seems to think that we can keep spending money and everything's going to be fine. Nobody on this planet, I don't care who you are, cannot keep spending insane amounts of money that you do not have without running into some kind of consequence at some point. And the consequences that we will have here are going to be epic. And the federal government is not going to fix itself. The only way to fix the federal government is to take the power away from the federal government, the place where it was never intended to be, and give it back to the states. This is why this Convention of the States is important. And to be perfectly honest, even though it is currently a 9-point plan, you could probably make it a 4-point plan or a 5-point plan and create a true balance of power and some common sense in this nation of ours. So my question is, because the biggest thing that people have been saying about why they think this is dangerous is because it could lead to all sorts of crazy laws being passed. That is highly unlikely. It's even going to be a tough climb at this point just to get enough states to agree to a convention at all, much less to agree on which laws they want to pass or which amendments they would like to make to the Constitution. Okay, so this is not going to be an easy thing at all. Is it better to do something and try to get this government under control that obviously is not going to fix itself? Or is it better to do something? Is doing something better than nothing? Because it seems like the only thing that our politicians seem to be interested in is spending more and more money and taking more and more liberty. How is it that nobody in this country seems to care? I am beside myself. How can you not look at a law like this? Well, they want to take the power away from states. They don't want you to know what you're eating. Your government that's supposed to be protecting you doesn't want you to know what you're putting in your body. The same government that wants to force vaccinate everyone. The same government who's pulled all the planes off our borders that are supposed to be stopping these immigration of potential terrorists in our country and are using them to spy on the American public. If you don't believe me, go back and watch my videos. This is real stuff. Go watch Chris Sanhall videos. Do your own research. We are living in a country right now where they just created a whole separate division of the government for domestic terrorists. Not regular terrorists. They've already got a department inside the Homeland Security for regular terrorists. The Department of Justice needed a whole new section for domestic terrorists. The problem is, one of the main things that they are teaching these people on how to spot domestic terrorists is they're teaching them that the founding fathers of this nation are terrorists. And that people who believe in Christianity or the Constitution or states' rights, or, and I swear I'm not making this up, or making the world a better place, they can be considered a domestic terrorist. These are the kind of laws that our nation is passing. These are the kind of things they are doing right in front of America's face, and nobody seems to care. Now, I often wondered if people who believed in state rights, would that mean that governors who support state rights and the Constitution and the Convention of the States, are these guys considered domestic terrorists? I have a hard time believing that. But now, they want to pass a law to take away states' rights that sets a precedent that would allow the federal government to usurp the state power forever. Forever. And I guarantee you, folks, once that happens, you can go down to the museum, you can take that Constitution, and you can set it on fire, or you can wipe your butt with it, because it'll be worthless. This is how our government operates. I'll leave a link to the article. I'll let you check this out. If you want to look into the new domestic terrorism law, go look it up. There's tons of articles. This new domestic terrorism Department of Justice. If you want to go look up the GMO law, there's videos on that too. Plenty of information. I'm not making this stuff up. Unfortunately, every time that I make a video, I'm sorry guys, I don't have time to go and look for 6 different sources to cite y'all. There's plenty of free information out there, and I implore you to do a little research for yourself. I don't want you to believe me. I don't want you to take my word for it. I want you to go see it for yourself, because then when you go and you see this information for yourself, that's when you really start understanding the true nature of the problem in this nation. When you can see stuff like this right in front of your face, it kind of makes you start wondering what's going on, because it absolutely makes no sense why the government would want to do any of this. And the only logical explanation is they want more control, they want to take away your rights, they want to take away your freedom, they want to take away your liberty, and they want to control what you are putting in your body. How many ranchers has the Bureau of Land Management been putting out of business? These are food makers. These are people who are supplying what we are putting into our body. Okay? And so they're putting these guys out of business, and then turn around and saying, okay, we want to pass a law to make sure that even states don't have the power to stand up to let you know what you're getting in your food. We can't have American people knowing things. No. That's just bad business. So, I don't know, guys. I know I see this stuff all the time, and I shouldn't get worked up about it. But what the hell is going on? How is it that I can see this crap 3 or 4 times a day, and it's like 90% of America doesn't even know what the hell's going on? Now, don't get me wrong. I fully believe, you can call me naive, you can call me whatever, I believe the only reason why Donald Trump is winning by a landslide is because people are tired of this shit. People are tired of the lies. People are tired of politically correctness and not worrying about offending anybody. People are sick and fucking tired of it. And yes, he's almost as shocking as Pete Santilli, who I talk about a lot. He says some pretty out there stuff, but you know what? People are fed up. And it leads me to believe that a lot more people are starting to see what's going on with this country. The sixth state just signed up today for a convention of the states. Now that we see that they're trying to pass a law to take away states' rights, more than ever, we need Americans out there calling our elected officials and letting them know that we believe in state rights and we do not want to live under a dictatorship. Or as Grendel61 says, Obamunism. That's right, Obamunism. So, this is the kind of stuff that I see every day. And I wanted to make sure that that not only did you understand that the government wants to control the information about what's going into our body, but they want to take away state rights, would essentially nullify the Constitution forever. Because it will set a precedent. That's what I wanted you to understand, and that's what I wanted you to think about. And once again, don't believe a damn word that I say. I'm nobody. When you go and research and you see this information for yourself, it's terrifying and it's an awakening. And once you start becoming awake to the reality of what's going on in front of you, it's kind of hard to turn it off. I'll talk to you guys again soon. I hope y'all are having a good day, and I'll talk to y'all later.